Tonight, leaderless Republicans.
I'm looking for something that President Trump supports.
Digging out from the mudslides. And climate change hits the Jersey Shore.
I came in here to learn about weather, but I got schooled on penguins.
In a letter to the court, former USA gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar complained about how listening to impact statements from his alleged victims would affect his mental health. Nassar has pleaded guilty to 10 counts of first-degree criminal sexual conduct. Of the more than 150 women who say Nassar preyed on them, 105 are expected to speak before his sentencing.
Spending 4 or 5 days listening to them is significantly minor, considering the hours of pleasure you had at their expense and ruining their lives. None of this should come as a surprise to you.
Prosecutors are seeking 125 years in prison. Separately, Nassar has already been given a 60-year sentence on child pornography charges. A bipartisan bill proposed today would prohibit members of Congress from using taxpayer money to settle sexual harassment claims. The bill is part of a major overhaul of the 1995 Congressional Accountability Act, which regulates the much-criticized process for bringing sexual harassment complaints on the Hill. The new legislation would simplify that process by speeding up investigations, instead of requiring staffers with complaints to go through counseling and mediation first. The bill is expected to pass. The government is dismissing charges against 129 of the remaining 188 J-20 defendants who were arrested a year ago. 59 defendants are still facing felony rioting charges in connection with protests the day President Trump was sworn in. They've all pleaded not guilty. The U.S. Attorney's Office said that it now intends to focus its efforts on the smaller group, who they believe is, quote, most responsible for the destruction and violence that took place on Inauguration Day. Among the people still being charged are Elizabeth Legess, a chemist, and Michael Weberman, an animal rights activist. Like many of the remaining defendants, they could face up to 61 years in prison if they're convicted. In a statement to Vice News, Legess said she was thrilled for the 129, but baffled about her charges standing. A drone rescued 2 swimmers caught in a swell at an Australian beach today, a world first according to the Australian government. The operation took just 70 seconds. The drone, called the Little Ripper, dropped an inflatable rescue pod into the water by the 2 teenage boys in distress. They grabbed the float and managed to swim to shore safely. Last month, the New South Wales government announced plans to invest more than $300,000 in drone technology for water rescues and to be able to spot sharks near the coast. This morning, President Trump took a hammer to his own party's best shot at avoiding a government shutdown, rejecting the idea of an extension of the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, which Congressional Republicans have been planning on using as leverage to get a spending bill done. It now looks like the House at least may pass a stopgap bill, but on the 364th day of the Trump presidency, it's still not clear how Republican leaders on the Hill are supposed to get anything done when the person tripping them up is the head of their own party.
Even before Trump blew up the GOP's plans this morning, Republicans admitted that they were struggling to find a way to avoid a government shutdown.
We still don't have the votes here in the House. We made good progress last night. Hopefully we'll get there today.
By this evening, Meadows was confident that his bloc of conservatives would vote for the bill. But it's the absence of leadership from President Trump that got Republicans into this crisis in the first place. This all looked avoidable as recently as last week. Democrats said they wouldn't back a spending bill without a fix to DACA, and a bipartisan group of senators met with Trump to present him the deal they had cut on immigration, which they believed met the president's demands. Then, Trump torpedoed that deal and denounced immigration from shithole countries, leaving Republicans scrambling to try to find another option that would win over enough Democrats to pass the Senate. Hence this chip deal that Trump blew up again. The frustration with the president on Capitol Hill is pretty obvious. This was Mitch McConnell yesterday talking about Trump's unpredictable stance on immigration.
As soon as we figure out what he is for, then I would be convinced that we were not just spinning our wheels.
McConnell's pissed because while Trump creates these messes on Capitol Hill, it's McConnell and Paul Ryan who are the ones who have to try and clean them up. And they're the ones that get blamed when they can't. It is partly their fault that they can't get their caucus in line. But here's where a consistent, level-headed president could make the difference, especially one whose party has control of both chambers of Congress. He could give his members cover to take a tough vote. But instead, he skipped town to sell his tax plan.
The Democrats want to see a shutdown to get off this subject because this subject is not working for them. The tax cuts and tax reform has not been working well for the Democrats.
Trump's probably wrong about that, though. Past shutdowns have shown the party in power takes the blame. And so while Trump can't be bothered to lead his caucus, that lack of leadership is hurting the GOP. Enough that after the midterms, he may not have much of a caucus to lead.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
Donald Trump's inauguration ignited a pivotal year for women. The day after he was sworn in as president, close to 5 million marchers took the streets in nearly 900 cities worldwide to speak out about women's rights. Coming out of those marches, many women decided to run for office themselves. More women are running for office than ever before. In fact, 602 women are already registered to run this year. With almost 10 months to go until the midterm elections, the Center for American Women in Politics reports that 49 women are running in primaries for the 34 Senate seats up for election this cycle. 390 women are running for a spot in the House of Representatives, and 184 of those women are Democrats hoping to challenge Republican incumbents. Historically, incumbent candidates win re-election, but the 2017 Virginia State Legislature election showed us something completely different. 30% of the female candidates who ran against an incumbent won. Now, if anything, the election of Donald Trump turned conventional wisdom upside down. Cause and effect is difficult to prove, but it's hard not to look back at pictures of marchers from early last year and think it didn't make an impression when you see how many women are choosing to run. This weekend, another round of women's marches is planned across the country. The way the numbers are shaping up, there's a good chance the ubiquitous pink pussy hats will be replaced by a variety of campaign signs.
A long California fire season that crept into December set the stage for a follow-on disaster. The mudslides that swept down deforested hills in Santa Barbara County last week. In Montecito, where at least 20 people were killed, disaster relief crews are still scouring the wreckage with cadaver-sniffing dogs trying to locate victims who are still missing. More than 1,000 workers from 10 agencies are working on the recovery process. Their most formidable task? Simply removing the tons of mud and debris.
You can see we have an enormous amount of material, and we've only scratched the surface of how much material we have to remove. You're pulling out thousands of cubic yards of material 10 yards at a time, and so that puts into perspective how long it'll take. Our first course of action was to get our roads open, because if you don't have a roadway, nothing happens. It's a race to get our transportation infrastructure up and running and keep it protected by keeping future flows in the creek. Private property owners have, in some cases, several feet of mud and rocks in their property. Several property owners, unfortunately, their entire house will have to come out. And in some cases, the house no longer exists and we don't even know where it is. The carnage of this event is indescribable. And a picture doesn't do it justice. You have to see it. We have no idea what the total volume will be. It's just, I mean, there are still areas we haven't been to yet. In some cases, you have an excavator that takes material out because he's in a hard-to-get-to spot. He'll put it somewhere where someone then will take it to somewhere else, and then they'll load it in, almost like a chain of equipment, which is slow, but it's all that you have. This is an orchestrated chaos that we're in. We're running out of room at all of our usual disposal places to put this stuff. And so that'll be our challenge going forward. Some of the material, if it's clean and free of rocks and vegetation, like a lot of this is, may end up going to two of our local beaches. Keep in mind that in the absence of our community being here, all of this would go to the ocean, and that's what makes our beach. So the compatible material, to the extent possible, we want to take to our beach because it helps rebuild our beaches.
I'm picking up the mud, northbound lane in Montecito. We've got various locations we're going to. In Bealton, there is a granite pit there, and that's where the majority of the rocks and boulders and mud, that's where it's all going. I'm averaging about 10 to 15 loads a day, just depending on how it's looking with trucks and how many are lined up waiting to get loaded. Cole Farms, I have highway mud.
Okay, was it broker?
It's a good feeling, doing something for the community, everyone that lost their houses, even lost family. It feels good, working hard to try to get the place up and going again.
Turkish President Recep Erdogan has extended a state of emergency in Turkey, a declaration that allows him to continue exercising nearly unchecked authority. Erdogan first implemented the state of emergency in response to a failed coup in 2016, and in the year and a half since, he's used his expanded power to arrest thousands of state officials. But the man Erdogan blames for starting the coup has remained beyond his reach, Muslim cleric Fethullah Gulen, who lives in the U.S., and so Erdogan has launched a different kind of battle against him, attacking Gulen with a book that targets, of all things, charter schools in America.
On the night of the coup, I was probably the first person to identify the Gulen organization as the logical organization to be behind the coup.
This is Bob Amsterdam, a Canadian lawyer hired by Turkey to investigate charter schools that Fethullah Gulen allegedly runs in the US.
In my view, the Gulen organization is targeting American children.
Amsterdam and his team claim that there's a secret network of these Gulenist schools across America, and that Gulenists are using these schools to indoctrinate children and are misusing millions in taxpayer funds to support their movement in Turkey. Questions surrounding these schools are not new. Journalists have raised red flags in the past. And in 2014, a joint FBI Department of Education investigation was launched into schools in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. But so far, there's been no major fallout. So Amsterdam and his team published a giant tome, Empire of Deceit, in the hope of drawing attention to the supposed scandal. A lot of the things that you have to discredit the Gulenist movement seem rather anecdotal. What actual proof do you have for systematic illegal activities that the Gulenist movement does?
They're not anecdotal. I mean, we've taken public record evidence in respect to this. It deserves a real thorough investigation.
Is that why you're doing it?
I'm doing it because I think the Gulen organization and the movement are a danger to the national security of the United States. And Gulen and his PR people have been extraordinarily effective at deflecting the conversation.
Alp Aslandogan is the president of that PR machine. He heads up the Hizmet movement's Alliance for Shared Values, based here in New York. The Hizmet movement is the Gulen movement, right?
Yeah, it is the preferred term for people within the movement. Hizmet means service, literally in Turkish.
He's commonly known as Gulen's right-hand man and has long defended the Gulenist movement and its institutions. Are you aware of the investigation that Bob Amsterdam is leading into the charter schools?
Yeah, Mr. Robert Amsterdam declared himself that he was hired by Turkish government to investigate such schools and other schools around the world, actually. That's what he said.
Is that something that concerns you at all?
No, it doesn't, because they keep referring to investigations, but they don't refer to the fact that many of those investigations have concluded with no findings.
So you're saying that Gulen and you yourself have absolutely no knowledge of any form of embezzlement or fraud in connection to these Gulen schools?
I'm not aware of any wrongdoing that has been proven legally. I have seen allegations, I have seen some alleged witnesses, but I have not seen any proven case.
Amsterdam's case is partly based on the testimonies of teachers, administrators, parents, and students from 192 schools around the country, including the Syracuse Academy of Science. The FBI has not opened an investigation into the school, but we looked into some of the allegations. Patrick was a teacher at the school before he was terminated amid a labor dispute.
Turkish teachers came in every year. They were not certified. They were not very strong with their English language skills, so a lot of times the kids would struggle. I mean, it's almost like a Turkish mafia runs the school.
Patrick claims that the school hired unqualified Turkish teachers. From public records, we can see that the school has applied for 53 H-1B visa certifications, but not whether these were specifically for employees from Turkey. What we can identify is that the school submitted labour certifications for 11 Turkish employees to eventually get green cards. That teachers at the school have, on average, less experience than those teaching at other schools in the state, and that the number of teachers who do not have teaching certificates is higher than the state average. We also spoke with a former HR administrator who alleged cheating at the school.
First time I actually witnessed this type of cheating, it came from the teacher, and that teacher showed me documents of grades being changed on a student's report card.
The school, though, says these allegations are false, and there's no way to verify the claim without access to student records from that time. Some parents and students have also claimed that the school's teaching standards are subpar. Gwendolyn Mook and her daughter Laurie, who graduated from Syracuse Academy of Science in 2016, reached out to Bob Amsterdam after hearing about his investigation.
They brag about 98% of their kids being accepted to college. But when you look at it, how many of those kids actually make it through the first year?
When you have someone coming in saying it's like private school, but you don't have to pay for it, I definitely can see why parents would jump at it.
I think the goal of the school is to get the taxpayer dollars to help fund their movement, and our kids are paying the price for it.
According to state records, though, the school's academic achievements are on track with state standards. And it's actually been held up by the state's education department as an example of a successful charter school. The Syracuse Academy of Science categorically denies all allegations. What's more interesting is that the school denies having any connection at all to the Gulenist movement. And Alpaz Landuan also told us that SAS was not a Gulenist school. But 3 of the school's founders and the current superintendent did graduate from institutions in Turkey accused by the government of being affiliated with Gulen. Empire of Deceit hasn't made much of a splash in the US. It's ranked around number 3 million on Amazon, and as far as we know, there have been no new federal or state investigations into any of the schools mentioned in the book. So what's actually going on here? One possibility is that the book is just another smear campaign by Erdogan against his arch-political nemesis, Gulen. Why do you think Erdogan is investigating this?
Erdogan wants to become the strong man, the one-man ruler of Turkey. But to justify his actions, such as subjugating the judiciary, subjugating the media, subjugating the big business and money, he needs an enemy. I think he chose Gulen and Hizmet movement as a convenient enemy.
And the fallout continues online. Amsterdam's team have launched this website. Gulen's team then quickly responded, rather creatively, with this. Meanwhile, Amsterdam plans to launch a second book in March. Obviously, before taking this on, you were aware of Erdogan and Gulen's long-standing spat. Did that influence your decision at all?
No.
How much is the Republic paying you to do this investigation?
I'm a lawyer. We transact business, but we don't discuss the affairs of our clients.
Isn't this just a further way in which Erdogan can increase his power and win points on a global stage?
President Erdogan took in and saved the lives of 3 million refugees, which this country refused.
That might be true, but he's also cracked down on a lot of opposition, opposition, including journalists.
You know what? The Gulenists infiltrated the judiciary in Turkey. The Gulenists infiltrated the police, and they infiltrated the army.
They may have infiltrated, we don't know.
What I'm saying, in terms of this book, has nothing to do with whatever has gone on in Turkey.
So you're not a puppet that's acting on Erdogan's behalf?
We've never been a puppet to anybody, and we never would. This book is about the unregulated nature of a very dangerous cult in the United States. That's what matters.
I'm known for being on a show called Jersey Shore. Shout out to you, Ronnie. What's up, bro? The girls dress crazy, cheetah print, and bedazzled everything. It's terrible. I'm from Staten Island, and I'm like this weird weather nerd.
I am Bhavani Venkatraman. I'm an associate professor of the New School. I teach courses in the science of climate change.
Did you ever watch Jersey Shore?
Oh, no. I've never watched Jersey Shore before, no.
Hi. Vinny.
Nice
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I think the reason why I'm here is because I responded to a Donald Trump tweet. He was saying that it's the coldest New Year's Eve on record, and where is that good old global warming to heating things up?
Right.
And I don't know how you would judge my response to him, but
I thought you were right on. It is complex.
Did you like when I said "and shit" like that?
Exactly.
Because I want him to understand.
No, I agree.
You know?
And
so if it is the coldest it's ever been, I'm like, that's weird. Maybe something's wrong.
No, that's true. And in fact, with this particular Arctic snap, part of it is also because the Arctic is changing because of rising temperatures in the Arctic. It does impact us.
Yeah, see, we're getting the Arctic temperature. Keep that over there with the penguins and the seals, not...
Well, the penguins are in the Antarctic, but okay.
You know what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Polar bears or whatever. I thought penguins were wherever it's cold.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have corrected him on that.
So, I'm known for being on a show called Jersey Shore, which in the name, shore, implies that it is near the ocean.
Yes.
I know that places near the shore are under threat.
Yes.
So how are they under threat, and when will that happen?
Right. So I think in many ways it's already happening because the sea levels have risen already, just a few inches perhaps, but still enough to see impacts when you have dramatic climate events. Hurricane Sandy is a good example. If you continue on a current trajectory of just pumping out greenhouse gas emissions, some projections are 3 to 6 feet by the end of the century. But that's
so what does that look like for the Jersey Shore? Like half of Snooki's bedroom will be there? Oh, maybe Snooki, the whole thing?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, it's okay. All right, so we have a few viewer questions from Twitter and shit like that. @Thomas Otterman wants to know, will the storms/hurricanes be more fierce in the next 20 years?
I would say modern predictions would say yes. I mean, we're just going to get more and more extreme climate events as the Earth warms up.
I know people that don't know the difference between a hurricane and a tornado.
Right, okay.
We have to know what these things are to know how global warming can affect that, you know?
Right. But the point is sort of higher temperature means more energy present.
Yeah, people understand energy.
Right.
Swidmere32 wants to know, do spray tans affect climate change? Can I take that one?
Yeah, sure,
if you don't mind, Bhavani?
of course.
I would say that spray tans are actually good for the environment because there's no UV radiation going into the atmosphere. I don't know if that could cause global warming, but it seems like it could. How was it? How was that? Is that good?
Actually, to be honest, it depends on whether anything is in the spray tan that could be a greenhouse gas, and then as you spray, gets released, okay?
It's too
I don't know the answer to that.
Next time I get a spray tan, I'm going to be like, I'm causing the next hurricane.
No. If I can ask one more question
Of
you,
course,
though, on this
anytime,
one. So,
anything.
how might this information be communicated?
Like somehow make it affect like a little girl's iPhone.
Right.
Or something. Like your iPhone doesn't work today because of global warming.
Right, right.
She'll fix global warming.
You need an app there, right? Which every time
Yeah.
the air pollution goes up to a certain level, the phone stops working. Or something like that.
Exactly.
Right.
We see we can collab
Right.
and do it.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Thank you.
I don't really get the opportunity to. I'm usually
It was-
talking about going to the gym and stuff.
That's Vice News Tonight for Thursday, January 18th. Tune in tomorrow night for a special episode on the one-year anniversary of the Trump presidency. America First.
You have one thing in common, which is you all voted for Trump. How many of you think that if the election were held today, you would vote for him again? Okay, why not?
I'm not one of the cult members who thinks everything he does is wonderful.
They wanted somebody to hear their pain and to act on their behalf. And Trump, being the phony that he is, he understood that.
Trump is a showman. I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
Donald Trump is going to have more trouble in 2018